an important day. World Autism Awareness Day is an important day for the autism spectrum disorder management community. It is a day where we raise awareness of the issues surrounding autism to the public. However, awareness alone is not enough. We must respond to these issues with kindness, compassion, and commitment. And this extends to investment into their education and employment. Yang Berhormat Dato', ladies and gentlemen, in the recent years, many major efforts have been made towards increasing access to education and job opportunities for persons with autism. Smarter Brunei has also taken our part in countering discrimination in work opportunities for autistic adults with the launching of Bijak Cafe back in June 2021. Although there has been promising results, many autistic individuals still face the same challenges of integrating into our society without judgment. Then in the year 2020, we witnessed how the COVID-19 pandemic in a matter of months managed to temporarily close down many schools all around the world. The case was not different in Brunei Darussalam. We saw how the pandemic impacted our nation's economy and education qualities. In our centers, this effectively caused a disruption to routines and services that our children have been relying on, hence creating more challenges for them and their families. Alhamdulillah, I must stress that despite this hardship, Smarter Brunei are able to move past this with the help of so many parties involved. Now, as we continue to push on through the pandemic phase, we seek everyone's support in our journeys to ensure the individuals on the spectrum achieve their fullest potentials and are able to participate fully in our society. From the bottom of my heart, I wish to thank the Brunei government, the kind-hearted officials from the government and private sectors, as well as the public, parents, teachers, caregiver, therapists, and all members of Smarter Brunei. We will not be here if it were not for your constant effort and hard working in supporting Smarter Brunei and what we stand for. The theme of today's forum focuses on empowering inclusion in the endemic phase. This resonates with our current missions, and we hope that everyone attending will find the information that will be shared by our panels later beneficial. The goal of the day is to raise awareness of the challenges and strength faced by individuals with autism in finding a place in our society. By celebrating World Autism Awareness Day, we are also celebrating the diverse abilities and the many contributions of people with autism. They deserve to be acknowledged and appreciated just as much as everybody else. To end my speech, I wish to call upon everyone to learn more about autism and practice kindness. I also encourage parents into seeking early intervention for their children as deemed necessary. Let us all do our part in building a more welcoming communities for Bruneians who live with autism to protect their rights of equal access to education and work opportunities in order for them to live their life independent and with dignity, security, and inclusivity. Thank you from me. That's all. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you to our President for that inspirational speech. We would now like to call Yang Berhormat Major General Bersara, Datuk Paduka Seri Haji Aminuddin Ehsan bin Pihin Orang Kaya Saiful Muluk, Datuk Seri Paduka Haji Abidin, Minister of Culture, Youth and Sports.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Yang Mulia Pengiran Zamri bin Pengiran Haji Bujang, Presidents of Smarter Brunei, Yang Mulia Sharifah Adila Surya binti Malai Haji Abdullah, Chief Executive Officer and Vice President of Smarter Brunei, Member of Legislative Council, Permanent Secretary, Deputy Permanent Secretary, Your Excellencies, fellow speakers, parents, carers, teachers, therapists, members of Smarters, ladies and gentlemen, and especially to all students of Smarters and individuals with autism we are celebrating today, especially in marking the World Autism Awareness Day. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi ta'ala wabarakatuh. Ramadan Karim, and a very good afternoon. It is a great honor to be here with all of you today. Thank you so much, Yang Mulia Pimpinan Zamri bin Pimpinan Haji Bujang, President of Smarter Brunei, Yang Mulia Sharifah Adila Surya binti Malai Haji Abdullah, COO and Vice Presidents of Smarter Brunei, and to all members of Smarter Brunei for organizing this important forum. As always, all of you inspire us with your extraordinary efforts to ensure individuals with autism in Brunei Darussalam are given the right support and, most importantly, are accepted for who they are and are fully included in our families and society. This is why World Autism Awareness Day resonates so strongly in our hearts, especially as we begin our full recovery from COVID-19. Indeed, it cannot be denied that many students with autism were among the most affected by the pandemic, causing disruptions to physical routines, services, and support that they rely on. But Smarter adopted and adapted quickly, as well as other organizations. The innovative use of online platforms meant students were able to continue their vital learning activities and education at home and encourage the active participations of their families. And we are very proud Smarter continues to work hard to ensure eligible students receive COVID-19 vaccinations. 98% of students have received 2 doses, 80% have received booster doses, and recently 20 students aged 5 to 11 years old have received 1 dose. This also resonates with other different organizations. Last year also recorded many significant milestones in strengthening inclusivity and the protections ecosystem for all persons with disabilities in Brunei Darussalam. From the introductions of 2 important laws that resulted in elevating awareness and strengthening the care for persons with disabilities, to the introductions of sign language on Berita Perdana, we are pleased with what we have achieved together. These achievements are testaments to the valuable impact Smarter, the NGOs and the government have given during these challenging times, and most of all, they are reminders of the importance of ensuring no one is left behind in our journey towards recovery, especially differently able individuals. Hence, not only is the forum team empowering inclusions in the endemic phase a timely one, this will also be crucial to bring about a truly caring and resilient post-pandemic future. This is a future that recognizes the contributions of all people, including individuals with autism, and one where all of you are able to fully participate in all aspects of society in line with the realizations of the care economy under ASEAN, the United Nations 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, and of course, our National Vision 2035. As we mark World Autism Awareness Day 2022, let us reflect on how recovery from COVID-19 can be maximized as an opportunity to reimagine our society and support system to make inclusions and equity a reality. Let us reflect on the crucial questions. How can we ensure the voices of individuals with autism are not only heard, but also acted on as we move forward in the endemic phase? And just as importantly, in line with the action plan for differently able individuals, how can we include persons with autism as integral players in building a better future from the pandemic? Through these conversations and beyond, let us come up with practical solutions as one collective community by empowering, including, and accepting persons with autism at the center of these initiatives. Indeed, as shared by the late Malai Haji Abdullah, all our efforts must be based on the 3 A's: Awareness must be followed up with actions to move towards the goal of acceptance. Inshallah, it is our intention that the discussions and idea sharing in these sessions will not end here, but will continue to inform our decisions through action by making changes and contributions in our respective communities. Although much progress has already been made, we can still do much more. This is what today's forum is all about. To end, once again, thank you and congratulations to Smarter Brunei for providing and organizing this platform and for all your hard work. As we celebrate World Autism Awareness Day and with the blessings of the holy month of Ramadan, let us reaffirm our commitment to an inclusive, equitable, and sustainable world for persons with autism by empowering inclusions in the endemic phase and beyond. At this juncture, and with the kalimah of Bismillahirrahmanirrahim, it is my great pleasure to declare the World Autism Awareness Day 2022 Forum open. Bertaufiq wal hidayah. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi ta'ala wabarakatuh.
Thank you so much to our guest of honor for the opening speech. Now, let's call upon our moderator for this forum, Sharifa Adila Surya, binti Malay Haji Abdullah, the Chief Executive Officer and Vice President of Smarter Brunei.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, and a very good afternoon. Salam Ramadan to all. Yang berhormat Datu, terima kasih banyak-banyak. I'm so humbled and thank you again for being our guest of honor for today. Thank you for always remembering my father. Thank you for that very wonderful speech. So today I'm so grateful for everyone to be here and to join us for this wonderful forum today. I'm excited to introduce to you our esteemed guests of panelists coming from various agencies and with amazing backgrounds and experiences, especially with the topic that we would like to talk upon today, empowering inclusion in the endemic phase. It is no secret that COVID-19 has truly done a damper on a lot of organizations worldwide. Inclusion has been a word that we heard for many years. It's been out there, it's been widely put out, and we have seen the word here and there, we have heard the word here and there, but do we actually understand what it means, what it truly means? Not on an ideally basic, on a realistic scale, one that we can implement, one that we can realize to come true, what is truly inclusion. And when the pandemic COVID-19 hit, inclusion seemed to be a very far away task because people who have autism, and people who are disabled or people with different abilities, many of them felt excluded instead. So now that we are in this endemic phase, I would like to bring upon this topic, how may we as a community, not just relying on the government, but helping the government hand in hand, empower inclusion to ensure the well-being of everyone. The 2020 World Health Organization Disability Considerations Report states that government should ensure public health information and communication is accessible, undertake targeted measures for persons with disabilities and their support networks, as well as disability service providers in the community, address the higher risk of persons in institutional settings and correctional facilities, and crucially ensure that emergency measures include the needs of persons with disability. Now, for in Brunei Darussalam, Alhamdulillah, we have the blessings of the government's great support. So today, without further ado, let's talk about how we can make the World Health Organization's report more into Brunei's report of being an inclusive society. I will now like to introduce our first panelist, Ms. Dayangku Dewi, the Acting Head of Persons with Disability Section from Ministry of Culture, Youth and Sports. Assalamualaikum dan selamat petang, Puan.
Waalaikumsalam. Hello. Can you
Thank
hear
you for
me?
joining us. Yes, we can hear you fine. Thank you for
Great.
joining us today.
No problem.
All right, next I would like to introduce our second speaker, Mr. Norali Haji Ali Yusuf, Acting Deputy Head of Department of Special Education under the Ministry of Education.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Very good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon, Norali. Hold on, I'm asking my technical team to spotlight you.
Oh,
Hold on 1 minute.
should I
You need
switch
to
on my
switch.
video?
Yes, you need to switch
Okay.
on your videos.
Is that okay?
Yep, there we are. We can see you wonderfully. Hi,
Right.
thank you so much for joining us today, Norali.
My pleasure.
Next, we would like to invite Dr. Hajah Mawarni from the Pediatric Consultant of Ministry of Health. Assalamualaikum and good afternoon, Dr. Hajah. You're still muted, Dr. Hajah. Could you kindly unmute yourself? Sorry.
Sorry. Okay. Assalamualaikum warahmatullah to everyone. Thank you for
Waalaikumsalam.
having me.
And thank you for joining us. Next, I would like to invite Miss Malay Ayla Surya, a parent from Smarter Brunei.
Hello, Assalamualaikum everybody. It's an honor and a privilege to be here today, and I look forward to what I feel will be really rewarding conversation.
Panelist, Ms. Nur Haslinda Ibrahim, a parent and the founder of Pathways Life Skills Enrichment Services. Assalamualaikum, madam. I think your video is off. Maybe, yeah, I think you should switch it on. So yeah, so our my technical team can pin you here. Hold on 1 minute. Yeah, there you are. Alhamdulillah.
Yep. Hi.
Hi,
Assalamualaikum.
everyone.
Thank you for having me here. Yes.
Thank you so much
Sorry,
for being
I
part
think
of
my connection is a bit.
It's okay. We can hear you a bit okay, but Alhamdulillah, thank you so much for joining us.
Right.
Ladies and gentlemen, these are your panelists, and we will begin the forum right now. So as I said just now, that inclusion, that word has just been spread everywhere. It's just been here and there. And for us who have been in this field for a long time know that inclusion in Brunei is there. We have started. But it's not truly where we want it to be. And there are so many issues surrounding this. So today's forum is to talk about how can we empower this inclusion further, especially now that we are in an endemic phase where many of people, not just who have autism, but all people with different abilities or disabilities are having a hard time adapting to the new change, which is the new normal. So first of all, let's talk about what is inclusion. This is the first question I'd like to ask you all. What is inclusion and what does inclusion involve? What does it take to be inclusive? Sorry, hold on. What does it take to be inclusive, and what does it really look like? What does inclusion really look like? So I will start the question with Dayanku Dewi. Would you care to take the floor, madam?
Yes, thank you very much. So Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Firstly, I'd like to thank Smarter for hosting this wonderful forum and for the invitation to share a few words with some familiar faces on the topic this afternoon. It really is a privilege to be included today. So personally, I think inclusion is a two-way street. It requires effort on both parties, the individual with disabilities and the environment that they are in, whether it be families, social, friends, and their professional life. So to acknowledge that persons with disabilities are also persons with different abilities. Inclusion also means to provide equal access and opportunities and resources for PWDs, to empower them by focusing on what they are best at, and in the end, accumulate a life of quality. I mean, that's pretty much what we're all looking for. The recent adoption of the Persons with Disabilities Order 2021 was a prime step towards cementing inclusion in the country. So the order included three main parts, which I will share now briefly. So one is the national definition of PWDs. When beforehand, we probably did not have a national definition of PWDs. So the definition is now based on Article 2 of the CRPD and includes physical, mental, intellectual or sensory, alongside behavioral, communication, and developmental. 2, the order introduced the registration of PWDs in the country, which will generate a national register of PWDs for the first time, and the introduction of a PWD card. Currently, there are 1,695 applications which has been received, and 138 PWDs have been registered under the National Register. So what we ask for now is we encourage PWDs to come and register officially, where forms are available both online on MCYS website and physically at all Pusat Bahagia centers. Thirdly, in the act, in the order, the abuse and neglect of PWDs is now a crime punishable by law. This is also a first and one of the key things that we'd like to highlight. The recent amendment as well in the old age pensions and PWD allowances 2021 has also promoted inclusion for elderly PWDs to receive old age pensions and PWD allowances. The Act has also introduced the care provider allowance to ensure proper care of PWDs. I haven't lost you there. Everyone's good? So recently also, just to share that the Special Committee on Persons with Different Abilities and the Elderly has revised the National Plan of Action on PWD issues for 2021 to 2024. And it has been aligned with the UNCRPD, the Incheon Strategy, and ASEAN Vision on the promotion and development of PWDs. So these are key documents that I think most people here know that are reference points for in ensuring the promotion and protection of rights of PWDs. On the policy sphere, the National Plan of Action on PWDs under the Special Committee is key to charting the development of PWDAs to ensure an enabling environment and strengthening mechanisms for policy formulation areas of economic empowerment and implementation of initiatives on interests of PWDs. So I'd like to highlight one example. The employment of PWDs, so in this case, requires family support of loved ones and to help motivate them to pursue an education or skills training in areas that might be of interest or a certain talent. Companies and entrepreneurs are also encouraged to support employment programs under the MPEC and to consider to employ PWDs with reasonable accommodation. Just to share as well that currently there are 125 PWDs registered under the Job Center Brunei, where 49 are currently employed and 21 are actively seeking jobs, and more than 100 OKU are employed in public and private sectors. So this is one of the key areas that we hope to see an increasing trend in the inclusion of PWDs. So I'd like to just throw it in there. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dayan Kudewi. Yes, during the announcement of the PWDs Act, that was actually a monumental step forward in the right direction after decades of waiting for this to happen, to be honest. So it's a very big step, and I'm very glad to hear all these new improvements, inshallah, with a lot more support from relevant agencies, including NGOs such as Smarter Brunei. We can really help push forward for this, yes? Thank you so much for your answer. And now I would like to move on the answer, the question to Norali. Mr. Norali, what is inclusion? What does inclusion involve? And what does it look like to you?
All right, thank you, Didi. So welcome again to everyone. Well, inclusion, what is inclusion? What does it mean to me? Well, this is, I have to say that this is something that I come across every day in my line of work. It's also something that I feel very strongly about because I'm a person with a disability myself. So inclusion to me, in its broadest sense, is actually about accepting, the process of accepting, respecting, and also accommodating individual differences, regardless of one's cultural background, race, ethnicity, gender, or even disability. Now, I like to focus on those words that I used just now: process of accepting, respecting, and also accommodating individual differences. I believe this is something that we must highlight because it forms the essence of what the process of inclusion entails. The process of inclusion it's not something that we can achieve overnight. It takes time, and it takes a lot of resources. And importantly, I think, and fundamentally, I think it also involves a change of attitude towards accepting the concept of difference. Now, what does that mean? Being able to accept, being able to see someone who is different or someone with a disability as a part of human diversity and not as part of human deficit. Let me repeat that again. Being able to see someone with a disability as part of human diversity, not as human deficit. To put it simply, just because someone has a disability or just because someone is different doesn't mean they are beneath the norm. Doesn't mean they're less of a person. It just means they're part of a wider context, the wider picture of diversity. Let me use an example to illustrate this. There's 5 panelists here, all of whom can see. I'm the only one who's blind. Now, for those of you who don't know, I'm actually a person with a disability who cannot see. I'm blind. So just because I have a disability, does that make me beneath the norm? Does that make me less of a person? If you say no, then that's the sort of, if you say no, you see me as a part of an equal member of this forum, then you're thinking inclusively. That's the kind of attitude, the kind of thinking that will make inclusion work in this society. Now, like Malay Didi just said, inclusion in the society has been happening for a while. It has been happening for a while. It hasn't. It's been happening since even before I was born. But there's a lot of improvement to be made. I mean, in the context of education, we see students with special education needs studying alongside their regular peer groups and friends. In the context of employment, as you mentioned just now, there are also persons with disability, youth with disability, who are working in the private sector as well as the public sector, like myself. In terms of infrastructure, buildings, premises, I can see now that accessibility is being considered, and that those buildings are being modified and adapted with accessibility in mind. And in terms of representation, I can see that there's a lot of coverage now talking about disability issues, persons with disabilities, highlighting their achievements, their success. There's even movies. I think 2 years ago, there was a movie, or was it 2 movies, with youth with disabilities as the lead. So they're equally represented. Even in our local RTV news, there's a sign language interpreter to help our hearing impaired community access the news. So this paints a very good picture of inclusion in our society. The question now is, how do we strengthen it? Are we doing enough? So I think I'll end it there. Didi?
Thank you so much, Norali. Very, very valid points. Exactly my thoughts as well. There's a lot that we have to talk about, especially in acceptance. I agree with that. It is very much of a neurodiverse, and it is a diversity issue now when we talk about PWDs. And so before I forget, I would like to ask the audience, if you have any questions whatsoever, kindly put it in the chat, or you may privately chat to me of your questions, and I will be happy to relay the questions to our panelists. Now let's move on to our third speaker, Dr. Hajah Mawarni. Dr. Hajah, let me just repeat the question to you. So what is inclusion to you, Dr. Hajah? What does inclusion involve? And what does it look like to you, Dr. Hajah? Please. Thank you.
Okay. Assalamu alaikum again. First of all, I'd like to say that I agree with what everyone has said about inclusion so far. They're all very good definitions and perspectives. But for me personally, in addition to all that, inclusion is not just about being able to access the same opportunities that everyone else have. It's also about having your voice heard. To be included, to me, is to be able to communicate your needs and to have your preferences acknowledged. To be fully included is also to be able to participate in any decision-making or policy or action plan development process that is going to have an impact on you, on your life, your education, and all your opportunities. That's all I'm going to say about that for now.
Thank you, Dr. Hajah. Simple yet straight to the point, and I think you agree that most of the panelists have said what you wanted to say right now. But of course, I'm going to give it to someone who might have much more to say. I would like to introduce Miss Malay Aila Surya. Please, Madam, what is inclusion to you? What does inclusion involve? And what does it look like to you?
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, everybody. I hope you can hear me. I am truly impressed with all the various definitions of inclusion, from legal framework to access and in education, as well as to self-advocacy, you know. But for me as a parent, as a sibling of an adult with autism, and the mother of a child with autism, and the aunt to many nephews with autism, I'll take what I've written down something, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and avoid repeating what has been said already. So basically for me, in very simple terms, inclusion is when no one is left behind. We talk about awareness, and then we've talked about acceptance, yeah? I'd like to move beyond awareness to acceptance, because then you can get to inclusion. You need to be able to accept a person with all that they are, you know? We are the human race. We're not all the same. For members of the audience, Didi and I are sisters. We are not the same, you know? And I think we must remember that with everything. It is person-led. People have identities. People, to truly be inclusive, we must understand people as people. And no one should be left behind. And when they are included, yes, it should also not be an afterthought. It needs to be something that is done intentionally and purposefully, with deep listening and asking questions if you don't know. Never assume. How will this help your autistic child? How will this, we would like to do an event, for example. We'd like to invite all of them. This is the date, this is the time. Yay, you've included us. But that's not what it takes to be inclusive. You know, thank you very much. But that was maybe a decade ago. In this day and time, especially now with the early endemic phase, we do need you to ask us, or for us to tell you, for you to listen, that our children or our individuals will need a staging area. We'll need a rest area. We will need a dedicated program to know exactly what's going to happen. We will probably need a site visit before, so that there's an orientation, yeah, so that they know what to expect. Because this is what is needed for it to be equitable, not necessarily equal, right? But equitable, so that they have the type of access that they require to truly be inclusive. You need to remember that people are people, and they have different needs and wants, and fascinations, and hobbies, and different triggers. You know, I myself go through grumpy days and great days, and you know, so that's normal. I mean, everybody else does too, right? Some days you're happy, some days you don't know, something's a bit off. How are people with autism any different? Yeah. And then I think what Dr. Mawarni said as well, that they are to be able to make decisions about their own life, basically, right? To be able to voice it in any way that they can. That was my third point, which is nothing about us without us. So don't make policies, don't have lovely events, wonderful things, you know, without bringing us along in the thinking of it. Because with that, magic happens, such as the vaccination at UBD with SMARTA, yeah, and MOH. That partnership was amazing because there was listening, and there was kindness, and there was science, you know, and respect. And it worked brilliantly. Our individuals had access. It was smooth. They felt safe. Alhamdulillah. For me, that's a really good example of inclusion in the works, yeah, that happened. And I guess to be a bit more like my father, when you go online and you shop, right? You want to shop and have all inclusive tax, right? The delivery, everything as part of it, right? If it's the shoes, maybe the shoe polish as well, the dust bag. Okay. Where am I going with this? It's all automatic now. We don't have to think about it when you shop online. It's all inclusive. Breakfast, all inclusive. One day, let's hope that inclusion is all inclusive. We don't have to think about it anymore. It's automatic. It's in the system. I know I don't have a lot of time, but I wanted to also honor my son, who has told me his biggest issues with autism is what he calls systemic ableism. And I think together with what Dewi has shared and with what Raleigh has shared, Dr. Morani, we can move towards a world, or a Brunei, at least a Brunei, where it's not the child or the individual who has to fit in. It is the system itself that helps with the child. You know, the system does not automatically privilege normal, you know, in inverted commas. The system is there and it does not privilege ableism, people who are able, but it provides equity for all the diverse range of human beings that we have. Okay, I think that's it for now. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Miss Malay Ayla. You just had to mention breakfast during Ramadan. Now I'm having a bit of a I'm so sorry. But okay, let's move on to our next, last but not least panelist. I look forward to hearing your answers, Miss Linda Ibrahim. So what is inclusion? What does inclusion involve? And what does it look like to you? Just so that everyone knows, I would like to just say a bit about Miss Linda Ibrahim. She has 3 sons with autism. All of them are now adults. And so I'm very happy to have her on this panel. So please, Madam, take it away.
Okay, thank you, Didi. Can you hear me? I hope my mic is working. Yeah, all right, wonderful. Okay, Assalamualaikum. Well, to me, inclusion is what everybody has been talking about. To me, inclusion is acceptance, accessibility, and accommodation. Now, before I go on, okay, like Didi mentioned that I'm a mother to 3 autistic adults now. They are age 22, 18, and 16. Right, my eldest was studying in the UK before before COVID happened. So he was there for several months, and he was actually living there independently, managing himself, finances, and everything. And even to the stage where when Brunei students were recalled back to Brunei, he actually managed to, sort of do all the paperwork himself, and much to our surprise. And for someone who's also very, very very picky about what he eats. Even coming home, he was, he was under quarantine, isolation for 14 days. He did not mind what was served to him. So again, that shows that, our loved ones with autism, they are capable of so much more than, that we can ever imagine. And I believe that is the same for everyone else. For my second one, he was previously non-speaking up to the age of 8.5, but finally he did speak at the age of 8.5. He did not spend a lot of time in school due to various traumatic incidents, actually, which is very unfortunate, but I have had to homeschool him. And again, with him being homeschooled, the question of inclusion, how do I get him included in society, because or else he'll be just at home. And then I have my youngest one. Recently, he just entered Maktab Duli, the 6th form center. And again, through the process of getting him enrolled in Maktab Duli, I was seeing inclusion in action. So that's why for me, inclusion is acceptance, accessibility, and accommodation. Basically, inclusion is, to me, being able to give, people with disabilities an equal opportunity to succeed and be independent, to the best of their ability. And also for me, inclusion, from society is being able to treat everyone, who is different with kindness, and at the same time, you don't
Oh dear, I think her internet is Miss Linda, are you there? Sorry, I think your internet connection is a bit lagged.
okay.
All right, okay, we can hear
Hello?
you now. Yeah, we can hear you now.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, so to me, inclusion from society would be to treat everyone with kindness. I mean, people with disabilities with kindness.
We lost you again, Miss Linda. So sorry. Oh dear. Oh no, we've lost her completely. Did she switch off her video? Okay. 1 minute while I have my technical team find out what happened to Miss Linda Ibrahim. Okay. Are you there, Miss Linda?
Yes, I am
Okay.
here. You can hear me? I do
Yes.
apologize. I don't know. Maybe
It's okay.
my place
It's
or your place. Yeah.
It's the internet.
It is the internet. And then, for me, myself, I'm also neurodivergent. So having children with, who are also neurodivergent, because, I mean, you've heard about neurodiversity, but being neurodivergent means the actual individual person, with their own disabilities, yeah? So, but again, I do acknowledge that my neurodivergence is different from my kids, and each of my kids are unique and different from each other. But my biggest passion raising my kids is having, them being included in education. Because for me, the key to move forward for the persons with disabilities is education in whatever form, possible. When you talk about acceptance, okay, that you accept this student in school, you accept this child in school, in the center, in whatever. So then you talk about accessibility, do they have access to support? And then do they have access to communication tools? Because even with people with autism, one of the traits that they have,
We
the
lost you a
challenging
bit there,
traits.
Miss Linda.
Sorry, am I here? Am I back? Am I back?
Yep,
okay,
yep, you're back, you're back.
So we know
yep.
people with autism, they have communication difficulties as well. Yeah, so, and then access to calm zones or mental breaks or whatever throughout the day in school. And then we talk about accommodation, like ramps. And then for those who are hyperactive, do they have special seats, special tables? Is that provided for them? And also, like recently for my younger son, like I said, we had to fill up a form, which is an access arrangement for exams, because he is required to have, he was recommended by his consultant to have extra time in exams. And if required, he may need a prompter, because just like my eldest one, not only does he have autism, he also have multiple comorbidities. In fact, that is for all my kids. So my eldest one, he also has dysgraphia, meaning that he has difficulty in writing, but now he is studying to be a script writer, because he does not physically write, but he has the tools, the writing tools given to him, the correct communication tools that was given access to him. So you see, these are the kind of things when you want to talk about inclusion, right? You acknowledge that their challenges, but again, how do you help them? How do you help them? You see, there's no point getting them included, putting them in the same building, but you expect a child who could probably not be hearing to listen to the teacher, give lessons to the class. So that's why when I had my second son that I had to homeschool him, I had to find a way, because he was not learning like any other children. I was looking out for curriculums, whatever, but yes, those curriculums are there, which is fine. It gives me a guideline of what to teach him. But again, he was not learning in the way that you would normally teach. So this is again where inclusion comes in. So I had to research up, and I found the Universal Design for Learning, where it is, you create a very flexible environment, for the student to be able to learn, and for the student to be able to actually give the appropriate response. Meaning that if the student, like my son, cannot write, writing by hand, So can he type on a laptop, right? Or a student who, cannot understand learning just by simply sitting down, whatever, So, but maybe if you give him visuals, and they can learn that way, and probably at the same time they can also, hand in a report in the form of visuals, in the form of models, in the form of, maybe if they want to speak, they just speak, So for me, inclusion is a lot of things. And when it comes to education, these are some of the things that I find that it's really, really important, because once they go past the threshold of learning, these are some things that they can adopt, or which they can use. Yeah. So, and I believe this kind of inclusion should be included everywhere, in the workspace, in schools, in wherever in society. So, I mean, I can actually go on this one. Didi knows this very well. I mean, we met for the very first time, and we could really talk. But I'm also having connection issues here. So I guess I'll just end here. So thank you, Didi.
Hello, can you hear me now? Okay,
Yeah.
sorry. Thank you so much, Ms. Norlinda. Yes, when I met her for the first time, we were so lost in conversation. It was so much. But thank you so much for all your answers on inclusion. I highly agree. So myself, as well as I'm the moderator, but I'm also a mother to 2 children with autism. I have a brother with autism. I have nephews with autism as well. And inclusion is something that has always been one of my biggest life goals to achieve. And today's answers is wonderfully diverse, as autistic people are. It's just diverse. We have acceptance, we have respect, we have accommodation, equity, seeing a person as a person, human beings. We have one of the biggest things that I took out of that whole conversation was not just the acceptance or the accommodation, but was what Norali had said of inclusion requires a lot of resources. A lot of resources. And I think this is something that is one of the reasons why inclusion is seen as a setback, because a lot of people think that it's so much work. It's so much work. Why do we have to do this kind of thing? And they don't see that people are people. Right? People have different needs. And we're not talking about being equal. We're talking about equity now. We're moving beyond equality to equity according to people's needs basis right now, right? So the second question actually really much is very relevant to what we talk about having a lot of resources coming into, is to how to cultivate this culture of being inclusive. So we know that we have to be respectful, we have to be accepting, we have to be accommodating towards people with disabilities, especially in this case for people with autism. Many different things need to be done. So the question now is, how do we get to cultivate this culture of being inclusive? How can we empower people to want to be inclusive? Because again, people see it as too much work. Why should they care is essentially what a lot of people think. And I have had encounters with people going, what's it to me? I don't live this life. I don't understand inclusion, etc., etc. And so one of the participants has actually said, in the chat box, they have actually said, inclusivity needs to be taught and cultivated. Being inclusive doesn't come naturally to people whose lives are not impacted by the demands of special needs children. And her humble suggestion is to incorporate it in the education curriculum in the early years of schooling, and make corporations participate in disability awareness programs to give real meaning to inclusion in the workplace, which is all completely valid. So I would like to open the floor to any of the speakers who would like to start off first. So who would like to go first? Norali?
Right. Okay, thank you, Didi. I was just unmuting my mic. Yeah, it goes back to the change of attitude phrase that I mentioned just now. To have that kind of attitude change, we need to implicate it early on. Sorry, can you hear me? Hello?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, I think I'm.
Yes, we can hear you.
Oh, okay, great. Sorry. All right. Okay, like I was saying just now, you were talking about attitudes of how people were say, what's it to me? What's it to me? You know, so we need a change of attitude to broadcast this, not just in the curriculum, but also in society. One of the things that I find missing is that we don't have a diversity and inclusion statement in our organization, in schools, even at home. For those of you who don't know, the diversity and inclusion statement is a commitment of pledge for the organization and members of that organization to create a welcoming environment to welcome all kinds of diversity, individual differences. So I think this is a good way to start the ball rolling, not just in organizations or in in schools, but at home. I think parents can play a very big role in this. You know, I remember working in a bank, in one of the international banks in Brunei. They have a diversity and inclusion statement, and the reason why they welcome me in their bank is because they actually have that what I'm looking for, that theme of accepting, respecting, and accommodating individual differences. So they see me as a person first and disability second. So I think that's one of the things that we might need to do, trying to implement that diversity and inclusion statement in our organization, in our strategic plan. If you look around in our vision, mission statement, do you see anything that resembles a diversity and inclusion statement?
No, it's unfortunately no.
So that's something that we can think about.
Yes.
Besides that, I think welcoming volunteers is also one thing. During the COVID-19, I see a lot of volunteers, a lot of youth volunteers coming to volunteer their time and resources. What I'd like to see more is volunteering in NGOs serving persons with disability. I think this is a good way to give them some exposure about the challenges and about the opportunities to help persons with disability. It gives them the insight of what it's like to have a disability and how they can help out. So I think volunteering also gives us a sense of purpose. Who knows, one of these days they might, in a couple of years, they might grow up to be a director, an SUT, or even a minister. That might promote a social change in the society we live in. Yeah. So I think those are my 2 cents.
Thank you so much, Norali. I do agree that it's not just the education system that needs to incorporate this, but I actually did not realize about the diversity and inclusion statement. I did not realize that. So I think my sister, my Ayla, would like to say a few words about this. Please take the floor.
Thank you, Norali. Thank you, Didi. So diversity and inclusion actually is a big part of most international companies. And I've worked with 2, and they do have a diversity and inclusion, I guess, what's the word I'm looking for? Like a group, and then they have their diversity and inclusion statements as well. So it's not an alien concept, and I do think that it would be a good one to have in the community, because it is about respecting different points of view and honoring different perspectives and giving voice to those who might be in the margins. Yeah. But back to the question on how can we cultivate the culture of being inclusive? Just like that, being inclusion itself has many different parts to it. Yeah. And many, you can slice it up any different way, and we can all talk about it, and academics will write lots and lots of books and papers on it, right? Yeah. But for me, to cultivate this culture, it is about, yes, attitude and mindset, but it is also about the intention. It is about what is the purpose? What is the intention? If you want to have the best company or the best school, or you want to be the best human being, in that, when you pasang that nawaitu, when you have that intention, it will naturally go towards looking at those who you can help, I believe. Yeah. If you want to be successful. So first you need to be intentional and purposeful in wanting to be more inclusive. And with that, you need to allow people to make mistakes, to ask questions, and it's okay to be wrong as long as the intention is to want to get it right. Because it's not overnight, right? It's going to take a long time. And if people are so afraid of getting it wrong, people will not try at all.
You'll never learn.
Yes, they'll never learn, and they'll never want to do better because they're too scared. So I think that's one thing we can do. We can pasang the intention, and then hopefully our actions match that intention, and that we are okay with learning. Because with learning, you don't just get A's. Sometimes with learning, you get F's, right? So, and sometimes there are things about the thing that you learn that you don't quite get, or that you don't like, maybe even. But I think that's it. It's that attitude that Nurali was talking about, but also that willingness to be wrong, to get it right, you know? And how can we empower people? we can listen, and we can ask them to listen, and we can make it safe. We can model the world that we want. Like I can model, not we. I can model the world I want for my child. Yeah, I want the world to be kinder. I want the world to be more understanding. I want the world to value him as he is. He loves movies. He loves novels. I mean, he couldn't read or write until very late, but comic books were his way in, you know? And everything was, you know, it wasn't the usual way. He was my firstborn. And I see that with my brother as well. He was our first brother. There were lots of things to learn, and lots of things that we got wrong, and lots of things that we have gotten right. Alhamdulillah. I think really, when you ask that big question, how can we cultivate this culture of being inclusive? Again, it has to be at so many levels, right? Yeah, we have to have forums like this, Didi, right? So well done. Yeah, we need to get multiple agencies together to have the conversation. Well done. You know, we need the awareness, we need all of that. But we also need that safety net, that willingness, that growth mindset, you know, that it is okay to mess up because we want to actually get it right, and not stop trying, because of failures. And for me, that's how we can empower people, with kindness, with respect, and model the behavior we want to see from them. You know, that's what I can do as a person, supporting my society and my children.
Yes. Thank you so much, Kakaila, about that, because I think I'll take the one thing that I can take from you that I really resonate with is lead by example. Modeling how we want the world to treat us back, you know. So leading by example, I think, is one of the biggest things, and it is also something that is strikingly true for us in Smata Brunei. We do what we want, and we achieve what we want because that's the world we want. So what Smarter Brunei does is always in terms of leading by example. And that is something that we have been doing since our late president. Now, I see a few of our ambassadors, our excellencies, have commented a bit here. So I'm just going to share them with you before we continue on with this question. So from the Australian High Commissioner, I know that you're very new to Brunei Darussalam, so thank you for joining us today, Your Excellency. So he has mentioned that in Australia, that they have a role of resources in supporting inclusivity. So recently they have established a national disability insurance scheme to provide these resources to support people with disabilities in Australia. It provides people with disabilities and their parents with direct financial resources so they can determine for themselves what their needs are and how best to meet them. One thing, Your Excellency, that I would love to share is that Smarter Brunei has actually had a very great relationship with Australia for many years, way before the pandemic. We actually have a consultant from Australia. She works in one of the universities, and yes, she has mentioned to us about the great work that the Australian government does in providing aid and financial resources for for their citizens. And that is something that I think with the new OKU or PWD Act that Brunei has recently implemented in 2021 is actually geared towards. We're actually trying to move there. I think that today we could speak more on that in a bit. And so we also have our Excellency from the Philippines Embassy talking about how in Tokyo there is a tour of the city constructed by an NGO which blindfolds members of the tour so they can experience what it is like to have a visual disorder. And as she remembers, as a child growing up in the Philippines, I recall the experience of eating in a cafe that employed persons with hearing disabilities and how I had to order ice cream with them. They also, with respect to the government, from the government perspective, they hold a disability audit of public government buildings. So there's a lot of things that the Philippines government is doing, and similar, quite very similar, and on par with what the Brunei Darussalam is doing as well. We had also recently released a guideline on buildings from the Ministry of Development on how to be more OKU inclusive for their PWD inclusive for the buildings. Now, a little thing for you, Ambassador of the Your Excellency from the Philippines. Actually, Smarter Brunei had just recently opened a cafe employing individuals with autism that serves people with autism 100%. So we actually launched that last year, just before the second wave. So we'd be very happy to have you after Ramadan, not right now, to come and have us in our cafe, yeah? All right, so let's continue on with the conversation and keep this ball rolling. We talked about how to cultivate this culture of inclusion. How can we empower people? And one of the biggest takeaways is change of attitude. We must want to, which is also related to intention, which was mentioned by Ms. Ayla, and also having volunteers volunteering in various NGOs in Brunei Darussalam. We have 9 NGOs in Brunei Darussalam that are for PWDs. We also have government-run centers, which is Pusat Bahagia, and also leading by example. So I would like to ask who of the panelists would like to take on this question next. Okay, Dayanku Dewi.
That would be me.
All right.
Hi. So perhaps to quickly touch on the question that was raised by His Excellency from the Australian High Commission. So I'd like to repeat that recently the Brunei Darussalam had a recent amendment in the old age pensions and the person with disability allowances, which promoted financial inclusion for elderly PWDs to receive old age pensions and PWD allowances. So it's very recent. So it was enforced in October 1st, 2021. So it's very, very recent, and we're very proud of that as well. So and I think just to add on your recent intervention on the guideline that's under the Ministry of Development is actually the Different Abilities Design Guidelines 2018. So far, just to report that 100% of buildings that are newly built have included looked at the design guidelines and included the design guidelines recommendations. But back to the forum, how can we cultivate the culture of being inclusive? So looking around the forum, as dear Malay Ayla and dear Norali has mentioned before, I echo them. It is clear now that we need to learn meaningful inclusivity and to look beyond the biases, to fight the subconscious urge to look for the perfection, the perfect intervention or the perfect time. We all just need to start somewhere, to embrace differences and to accept that we'll have to go to the extra mile to cultivate inclusivity. We need to talk more with PWDs. We need to increase working collaborations with the differently abled themselves to increase empathy and awareness of difficulties faced by them and their families, to engage in more meaningful discussions, to work together towards a successful solution for PWDs, to take it one step at a time. The ecosystem that we have at the moment of a PWD's life is one that is supported by many actors: the government, individuals, private sector, and the community. PWD inclusion is about acknowledgement and allowing space for participation of PWDs in economic and social spheres. Even though PWDs externally only require policy and infrastructure support, the enabling environment to thrive and exhibit their talents, just like any persons, they also require various supports from families, and especially the public. So just to share on the recent COVID-19, it has given us the opportunity to look at things at a wide-angled lens. We were able to achieve many things, such as the provision, as mentioned before, the provision of sign language translators on national news. It was huge for our friends with hearing impairments. That was something that we were very proud of. The inclusion of PWDs in any public spaces through the design guidelines, more virtual discussions on PWDA issues. And there were several forums on PWD issues that we actually joined in the past few months, actually. And we saw increasing access to information, technology, public services, and in collaboration with relevant NGOs. This is something that particularly show that we all hold part of the puzzle. We need to work together to create solutions to assist the equitable development of our differently abled. And for that, we all need to acknowledge this. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sayang Kudewi. I think it goes back to what you said, that it's a two-way road. It's not just one way. And for me, I think inclusiveness is not just a two-way road. I think it's also a little bit of a round the bush,
Like
a little bit up and down, a bit of a roller
Correct.
coaster, you know, because you can never get it right the first time. As
Definitely.
we go back to, yes, you know, there's a lot of things that we fail at. And then one thing that my father used to say is try and fail, but never fail to try. And so that's the thing here, is that we always need to try. Even if we fail, we'll do it better. We'll get it back and do it better.
Definitely.
So this is something that I really thank you to get solutions here that are, as I said, not an ideal, you know, kind of idea, something
Yes.
that people write, something that's realistic, that we can really implement in Brunei. So I'm also pleased to announce that we have repertoires from Smarter Brunei who will be cultivating all, getting all these answers and presenting them as a report to Ministry of Culture, Youth and Sports, to the Ministry of Health, and to the Ministry of Education after this is all over. Yeah. So hopefully, inshallah, this will be a great way for us to push forward inclusion. So I think, Miss Linda, I think you wanted to answer something just now as well.
Yeah, well, actually, it was something that Ella was talking about.
Again.
Okay, can you hear me? Okay.
Yeah, okay.
So it's something about making mistakes, right?
Yep, we got you now.
Yeah, making mistakes and learning from it.
Yes.
Yes, I do agree. That's all part of the learning process as well. But apart from making mistakes, there must be willingness to learn from that mistake and to, you know, find knowledge more on how to not make that mistake again. And then currently what's catching my attention is from Ms. Zubaida. Inclusivity needs to be taught and cultivated. Alhamdulillah, my kids were lucky enough to go to schools where I could see full inclusion. Okay, maybe it's not perfect 100%. I know there's still room to grow, but unfortunately, those are private schools. And I believe this kind of inclusion can be made accessible to the greater part of Brunei as well, to all the schools. It shouldn't just be in private schools, you see. And, you know, seeing that, that's how I believe that inclusion does work. The proper way, when it's done properly, you know, in education, in everything. So, and when my son was in the UK, he also went to university where they had full inclusion. And like Norali said, that they saw the person first. They never saw the disability. And even currently, my eldest is in, you know, is in a school, in a film school, where they saw him first. They saw his talents first. You know, up to a point where, you know, when he was asked, because they wanted to do some kind of highlight for him, should we mention his autism? And then you know, I told them, speak to my son. And this is where it's important. We should always listen to the voices of the people with disabilities. I may be his mother, but I do not, you know, I do not control him. You know, I do not you know, shape his future in whatsoever way or control his future. Maybe I might help guide him to his future, but I am in no way, you know, controlling him, because that is ableism. Okay, and that is something which I really stay away from. So again, his reply was that, let people see me, see my talents first. I'm not ashamed of my autism. I'm proud of it. Hello? I'm proud of it, but I would rather people see me as a person. So that is a voice of an adult with autism. See them as a person. Right? So, and yes, hello?
Hello, yes, we heard
Yeah.
you.
So yes, Zubaida, you know, if we all work together, yes, inclusivity can work, even from the very, very early stages. And actually, you know, inclusivity and acceptance, like I think was it Malay Ella did say, it starts from home as well. It really does, because you know, when parents show that they can include their kids and everything, they accept their kids, right? So when they go to school, you will come across an educator who probably has not had any experience with a child with autism or any other neurodiverse conditions. So, but if you as a parent, you come with a confidence, you know, and show that how you treat your child, then they will also have that confidence. How did the parents do it? And again, that's really, really important, because you know, we want society to be involved, so it should be at all levels. So parents should be able to talk to the educator, and the educator should be able to talk to the parents and find some common ground to work together, you know. And over the years, that is what has been happening, you know, with me, you know, raising my kids. So there's always an open dialogue between me and the educators. And I mean, I have to throw away my parent ego aside as well, because I have to listen what sort of resources the school have, you know, and then how can we work together to bring those resources together, you know, for the benefit of the child. Yeah. So, and again, resources, yes, resources is, I guess currently it's still very difficult to get, you know, but again, there are ways that we can work to this, you know, right? So yeah, so again, in inclusion, it has to be from all levels, starting from, you know, the parents, the families, the educators, and whoever else that comes into contact with the child. And most importantly, we always listen to the child. It doesn't matter whether they're an adult, even when they're a very young stage, you know, you really got to listen to them. Yeah.
Yes, it's very true. I have, as I mentioned, I have two sons with autism as well, and it's very hard to ignore actually their voices. You know, as sometimes as a parent, they will just keep on telling you, you know, that something's upsetting them, and it's really hard for them to express themselves, even though they can speak. But yes, listening. One of the biggest things I think here is not just, as Norali mentioned just now as well, is that it starts from parents, it starts from the home, and parents play a big role, not just in education. And it's wonderful, because sometimes I see kids, very small kids, who are curious to understand why my second son Hazik is jumping around and flapping his hands. And some parents are so afraid of, you know, that we're going to be offended or something, they stop their child from coming closer to my son. And I tell them it's okay, he just wants to understand. And it starts there as well, that parents need to also kind of go, oh look, he's having fun, not seeing it as something different, not seeing it as weird, you know, not seeing it as, it comes from, okay, that child is doing something unusual, let's find out why, and let's have a nice conversation with his mother if she's willing to, you know, and let's talk about it. So that's how you can change attitudes, change perspectives as well. One of the ways is really starting from home. Dr. Hajah Mawarni, would you like to share a bit on how you think we can cultivate this culture of empowerment? You're still muted, Dr. Hajah. Oh, yeah.
Okay, yes. I think Linda really set the tone for what I'm going to say next, actually. Thank you, Linda. For what I had prepared to say for this question was that, you know, for me, as a pediatrician, for children especially, we need to empower the parents. And this is one of the ways that the CDC works. You know, we believe in empowering parents and also empowering those who care for them, who are responsible for their care. Because it's one way that that we can give a voice to the children who may not themselves be able to communicate what they want and what they need, and also, you know, like how Smarter is working. you are a voice for parents, and you started off as a few parents working together, and from there you grew, and now you're a big voice for parents in Brunei Darussalam. Yeah. So, but then again, empowering parents involves and requires a lot of investment. It involves educating them. It involves giving them a good understanding about the conditions that are affecting their children, and giving them support, and also giving them the various platforms that they may need to get their voices heard. And I think to do this, we need also to take on a rights-based approach. And we all know that there are so many international instruments for this purpose, such as the UN Children's Rights Convention, the UN Convention for People with Disabilities. And it's not good enough to just say, yes, we have this, we ratify to this convention. We need to inform parents what their rights are. We need to educate them, as to what is actually said in these conventions, so that they may take from there what they feel needs to happen, what change needs to take place. I feel that our government policies and our action plans need to be developed, not just with the needs of the children and people with disabilities in mind, but also by involving them throughout the whole development process. That's pretty much what I had to say.
If I may add, I actually fully agree with Dr. Mawarni. Just to give an example, like for my children, every year they have an IEP, individual education plan. Now, when they were younger, it was just between me, the teachers, the psychologists, sitting there. But as my kids grew older, I voiced out that they should start including my sons, in their education plan. See whether it's doable for them, because there's no point we're saying that, hey, we're going to set a target within 3 months, right? You are going to be able to say 500 words, but he should be able to know whether that's achievable or not. So let him come in and he voice out and says, okay, I think that's a bit too much in 3 months. Can we give me 6 months? This is just an example. Can we give me 6 months? So you see, that's truly inclusion, because you're listening to him. Right? And then at the same time, like Dr. Mawarni says, empowering parents can be a lot of work. That I fully agree, and can take up a lot of resources. But that's where, like Norali suggested, volunteers. Okay, like I myself, I've been voluntarily running a parent support group via WhatsApp or whatever online platform. Just listening to parents and sharing experiences, and over time. We grew a community. I call it a community of parents, where everybody starts sharing and everybody starts empowering each other. They start to inspire each other because they share things that are so difficult that when one parent, just is a standalone, they will see it as such a difficult thing. But when you form a community that is willing to share, willing to learn together, right? And they start empowering each other, that in itself is also inclusion to me, and acceptance and full acceptance. It does help the parents as well. And then another thing with inclusion as well, how do we cultivate that? Like I said, it's just through, I think somebody mentioned earlier, it's through example as well. Because I remember my eldest, when he started schooling, for the first 3 years of schooling, he only sat under the table. Okay, so every year, can you imagine talking to the teachers? So, but it requires a teacher who was willing to learn. Initially the teacher didn't understand, was willing to learn, okay, and the teacher was willing to probably change her mindset as well. Now, again, what it boils down to is empowered parents being able to advocate for their kids, so that they can have their kids being included, in so many situations and environments. Okay, I think that's it for me for now. Thank you.
Oh no, thank you so much, Dr. Ajamawarni and Ms. Linda Ibrahim. You see that I'm the one who's a bit stunned to speak now, and I'm the moderator because this is so. It's something that's really pushing forward for me, motivating me to really want to push for inclusion on all levels. You see, we have government levels, we have community levels, and we have the home levels, and then inside each one of them, there's little dissections we need to go through. Now, the final question I want to ask for all of you is, I think most of you have answered this, so I'm going to change the question a bit. I hope you guys don't mind. I know I prepared questions for you beforehand. So the question I wanted to ask you was definitely how, in your own capacities, kindly share how you are currently helping empower inclusion. Now, of course, some of you have already mentioned your line of work and what you do daily, but I also like to add in on top of that question is, what is your advice to the people right now on how they can start to think of inclusion as not an afterthought? Nothing about us without us is the ASEAN Disability Forum's main catchphrase. Nothing about us without us. So what is so the question is, how are you empowering inclusion in your own capacities? And the follow-up question is, what's your advice to everyone here to start being a little bit more inclusive in their everyday life? I would now move the floor. I think I'm going to do it anti-clockwise. I'll start with Norlinda. Miss Linda, can you kindly answer that first?
Yeah, sorry, can you repeat the question because I'm having connectivity issues here, so I
All
lost
right,
the
sure.
question a bit. Yeah.
I'm asking you how are you, kindly share how you are currently helping empower inclusion in your own capacities. And the second question would be, what is your advice to everyone on how to be inclusive? How can they start being inclusive in their everyday life?
Well, thank you. Like I mentioned before, I've been running this support group, parenting support group for the past in trying to, helping empower inclusion. Because, I got a simple advice from my mother when I first had my kids. If you don't put your kids out there, how will people know that they're there? So this is what I'm trying to build with parents, right? So this is what I often share with the parents. Don't be shy, bring your kids out. If people don't know that they exist, how are they going to be support systems for them? How are they going to be, access for them? All the hows. And when will that happen? Because they are just unseen, So you need to have, you need to, I keep telling parents, you need to bring your kids out, make them be seen, make them be heard as well. Yeah. So I guess my advice, not just to parents, to parents, don't be afraid to bring your kids out. Out as in just be out there in schools, in the environment, anywhere, everywhere. Yes, it's going to be tough. I never said it was going to be easy. It's not going to be easy. Parenting, someone with, disabilities is never easy. But again, our kids are human beings, okay? They're just humans. They're just like everybody else. It is their right to be out there. It is their right to be living. Simple as that. It is their right to be living. And when you're living, it is their right to be able to make choices. It is their right to be heard. And also, finally, it is their right to be able to live independently to the best of their ability. Yeah. So I think my advice is mainly for parents, but for people out there, for the society, just give them a chance. See them as a person first. Norali said it best. See them as a person first. You cannot see them any other way. They deserve that.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Norlinda. Yes, it's very true. People are people. Everything else is second to that. And so now we're moving on to anti-clockwise. Miss Malay Ayla, can you please kindly answer the question?
So in my own capacities, yeah, I'm a working mom. But I can't really mention my company because I didn't get clearance to do that. So I'll just talk vaguely
Okay.
about colleagues, yeah, and the work that I do. But mostly I'll talk about how I work with SMART and my work in my family and society. So the line of work that I do, well, it changed. When I was a lecturer, I would make it a point to mention neurodiversity. I would make it a point to talk about language delays, make it a point, like I would have a whole, many units of my module would be on, um, autism, dyslexia, etc., because I've always been an advocate in that way, and that would be what I did. I would design these modules, and then I would talk about it, and then I would get them to do some research and present, right? Because then they would learn about it. And then always with the guys that you will be teachers, you will see these kids, you might be the safe space, you could be the horrible space. Choose which one you want to be, but you have the knowledge. Yeah. Then I moved into the corporate world. And when it was there, what I did was I was interested in diversity and inclusion. And I also talked about it and shared anything that SMARTA was doing, or any of the other organizations as well, I would share. And the social investment, or the CSR unit, or the arm, would make their assessments, and then they would do what they could to help. How did this make things more inclusive? Well, at least there was awareness. The first step was awareness, right? And then, of course, acceptance. And in my new work as well, we also talk about mental health quite a bit. And from there, we also have diversity and inclusion. And I plan to include neurodiversity, yeah, as part of that. Now, in terms of my own capacities and what I do with my son at home and with my other children, with my son, I make sure I listen to him first, whether or not he wants to do something. And I respect his choices. He's 14. So he did not want to be part of the uh, World Autism Awareness Day video. He asked me if he had to do it, and I said, it's up to you. And I felt that that was me honoring his wishes and me listening to him. I would have loved him to join, but it's not my face, right? It's not my words that will be coming out. It's his. And so that's one way that I include him, or center him, like child-led, right? In how he wants to live his life. At school, when I speak to his educators about his condition, the first thing that usually comes out of their mouths is, oh, he doesn't look autistic. And I don't know if other parents have this same issue, but when I hear that, I feel like I have to prove how autistic my son is multiple times in a year, a month, sometimes a week. But I have to explain. And my son is not ashamed of being autistic, but he thinks it would be harder for him to have friends if they knew. So that makes me really sad, because that suggests that we're still quite far away from having a safe, inclusive environment where he feels that he will be accepted for just being himself. So what I do there is that I can support my son, and I can continue to educate the teachers. Yeah, and we can educate each other, you know, and talk about how best to do this. In terms of what happened with COVID, I think, I mean, it has been said so many times how it has basically put a damper on everything, and how some children or individuals have regressed. What I can see is that there is a lot more there is a lot more work that needs to be done now with making our children feel safe actually to be outside, be used to wearing the masks and the scanning and the temperature checks and the changing, lots of change in the routine. And with that, currently working with like helping Didi talk about how to help those with autism, how to help. We use my son sometimes as a model of how, what is impacting him because he's verbal, right? So we can use him. So in my everyday life, it is basically explaining autism, listening to my son, listening to my nonverbal brother who lives with me. You know, he communicates even though he doesn't speak, and listening to him and taking him out. He loves grocery shopping. So if you ever want to see him, he'll be at Waho Tanjung Bunot, yep, in the aisles, choosing all his snacks and pushing the trolley. He'll be there, and he's usually at the Empire taking a walk on Fridays, just pre-COVID, and now slowly during early endemic. So because I do not work in this area, but I live in this area, my everyday life is working on inclusion, trying to make the world, small piece at a time, better for my son, better for my brother. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Yes, so my nephew is he's shy to speak, but when he does speak, it's very much, I would say, it kind of guts you when you hear what he has to say about how he feels about certain things. It guts you not in the way of a bad way, but you don't realize how much it really impacts him sometimes. And for my son Fahmi, he's only 10, and he's still learning what he likes and doesn't like. He's still learning his way around this world. So I'm hoping that his inclusion, I'm very grateful that I have Smarter to back on, because he doesn't know any other life than what he is in Smarter, which has always been inclusive. So we're trying my best to, as Miss Nur Haslinda said, bring them out there. I'm trying my best to brave myself to bring him out there and see him have a little bit of failures, have a bit of falls, because if he doesn't ever, then he'll never learn. And that's something that as a mother is always so hard for me, because it's like, you have to be a helicopter mom sometimes. But now I'm trying to give trust into them and be their own person, which is something that I think a lot of people struggle with. They keep on thinking that children who are different need to be coddled so much, protected so much in a bubble, that they never get a chance to be their own person that voices out what they actually feel. And I think that's something very relevant here. As Nurali had said at the very beginning, people are people, human beings. So let's move on to Dr. Hajah Mawarni. Can you kindly answer the question?
Yeah, I think it would be true to say that, COVID-19 pandemic or no pandemic, endemic phase or no endemic phase, inclusion is something that we all have been struggling with and have been aspiring to for as long as we can remember. Yeah. And so first of all, I believe that, inclusion requires investment. There's no other way. For us to reap the benefits of inclusion, and we know what the benefits are by what we've been saying this afternoon, we must first invest in it. Yang Mulia Pengiran Zamri, the president of Smarter, also mentioned investment actually in his speech earlier. Yeah, so for me, being a clinician and not a policymaker, I feel that we can only help promote inclusion by, one, empowering parents through education, education by educating them, supporting them, and so on, and also by helping to ensure that all children get the best healthcare possible, that will enable them to get the best start as far and as much as possible in life. And when it comes to autism, and the same is true for other neurodevelopmental conditions, we all know that early intervention is key, yeah. But then we all know also that early intervention is only possible after early detection. So, and as I've been saying, you know, our resources are limited, and while the demands for our services have skyrocketed. So I think if we are serious about inclusion, we need to first invest more into the services that promote parent and carer empowerment, and also other services that directly help children to develop and learn all the important life skills for the better. Yeah, that's all I'm gonna say.
Thank you so much, Dr. Hajah Mawarni. So sorry. I'm sorry. I think Pwas is getting to me. Next on Norali, please share with us.
All right, thank you, Didi. All right, it's not me per se, but I actually represent the Department of Special Education under the Ministry of Education. So my department, as some of you know, I think we used to call it the Special Education Unit. Now we've been upgraded to a department. And our main task is to plan, implement, and coordinate special education programs and services for students with special education needs. And we do this by working together with regular teachers, special education needs teachers, and providing training for them, and also resources to ensure that students' needs are being accommodated in regular class settings. We also have a number of programs and services, but I'm not going to talk about that. I'll be talking a little bit about our latest project. One of our key strategic initiatives is the Center of Excellence. Now, this is, just now we were talking about how limited resources was. So basically the Center of Excellence is a centralization project where we optimize resources. Now, resources is always going to be not enough. So the best way for us to do this is to make do with what we have, to optimize it. So we centralize all the resources, including teachers, physical resources, informational resources, specialized equipment like assistive technology and so on within a particular school. And then we, all the kids within a particular catchment area would go there to access those resources. That way education is more accessible for them, active participation is ensured, and their learning objectives are likely to be achieved. And that is what I would call inclusive education, being able to access education, being able to promote participation, and also being able to achieve their learning objectives. I call it APA, APA. Inclusion is APA. All right. I think that is one of the main role of my department, and its connection to achieving inclusion in society, because some of you might be aware that inclusive education is the key to achieving social inclusion, and that's what we're talking about today. As for myself, I used to be very much involved in training people with visual impairment in the areas of technology, because I believe technology, or in the form of assistive technology, is a key to promoting greater inclusion in mainstream development activities. Now, I'm a testament to this because I actually use assistive technology in my day-to-day life. I use it at home, at school, at play, and everywhere. Okay, for those of you who know me, you'll see how much gadgets I have on me to ensure that I'm able to access the environment. So technology is a very important key impetus in today's society, especially during the COVID-19 period. Technology has broadened our academic and employment opportunities. It has put people like me on the same par as my regular sighted counterparts. It has led me to become an active, participating, as well as a contributing member of our society. So assistive technology is something that I would like to also share to be part of the what we can do to promote greater inclusion. Just now, all of us, all five of us, talked about attitude. Having that attitude to accept the notion of being different. We also talked about access. Making sure and creating environment to be accessible in mind. Creating it with accessibility in mind. And then we talked about advocacy. I think Dr. Mawani touched on this, and also Puan Linda, you also talked about this too. Advocacy is very, very important, especially for youth with disabilities out there. If you want to be heard, you need to get outside, out of your comfort zone. You need to tell everybody your needs, your concerns, your interests. That's what I did when I lost my eyesight. And I had a lot of support from a lot of people. And that's where I am today. And one other thing that all of us mentioned was about that alliance, that strategic partnership between all the four key stakeholders: government, private corporate sector, NGOs serving persons with disability, and also individuals or groups of individuals who have the same cause. I think a strategic alliance or a partnership between all the four groups is very, very important if we want to move forward. Government, we can't rely on government to do everything. We need to play our role. We need to be proactive if we want to make social inclusion work. And the last one I want to add is the assistive technology, the one I mentioned just now. If you look at the 5 things that we mentioned, it represents 5 A's: attitude, access, advocacy, alliance, and also assistive technology. 5 A's that we need to ensure social inclusion works in our society. I think this is similar to the 5 A's that we use in the concept of inclusive education, which happens to be acceptance, access, adapted curriculum, adapted instructions, and adapted assessments. That was, I think, proposed by Professor David Mitchell from UNESCO. So I think this links well to the 5 A's I just also mentioned. So I think that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Norali. I like that, the 5 A's. My late father would have loved that. And I might add that we might take that and put that in our report. Okay, thank you so much for that. I do agree. 5 A's: attitude, acceptance, access, advocacy, and assistive technology. Now, assistive technology, a lot of people often think it's only for a certain type of disability, whereas it's actually encompassing for everyone. And this is something that even in Smata Brunei, we've been talking about assistive technology in many forms, in many ways. So I do really highly agree with you that we do need to talk about assistive technology more, maybe in the next forum, inshallah.
Inshallah.
Yes.
Thank you.
So Dayan Kudewi, please, let's finish off with you before I move on to there's a few questions here, and we can close off the forum very soon.
Right. Hi. So this last part is more on how I personally relate to this issue and how I try to help empower inclusion. I suppose by way of background, I'm not as experienced as our dear colleagues in this forum, actually. So I'm quite new to this. And when I joined Pusat Bahagia, it was definitely an interesting world. It was something new, met new people, I learned new things, and it was really something, turned me around completely. So in the recent adoption of the order 2021 of the Person with Disabilities Order 2021, we saw that yes, this is a great success in collaboration. And it was a journey culminated by the government, individuals, and organizations who are passionate about the rights of persons with disabilities in the country. We work hard, and we see this. We knew that it was a long and hard battle of negotiations, finally realized in October 2021, because this particular act included the national definition of PWDs. And this was going to help register numbers and look at PWDs with better lens. But we also knew that the real work also starts now. We had to look at things differently now. We looked at ways to support PWDs meaningfully and where else to begin but inwards. So where I was placed, which is Pusat Bahagia, we started looking into how to add value to our students. Started to look into how to help our students to see life beyond Pusat Bahagia. Like, you don't just come into school and then leave and that's pretty much it for the rest of your life. We want them to have some kind of ambition. We want them to join the society. We want them to have a place in society. And that's really what we want at this point. We began to look at opportunities, safe spaces for our students to create. So this means we had to look at it in different lens. We need to look at it with fresher eyes. And we really wanted to increase the confidence of our students towards their own abilities. So we needed to empower them directly. So last Ramadan, just to share, we embarked on creating a tudong collection, which I'm wearing right now. That was created by our students working with a local company to just put this product out there. We had nothing but just, we really wanna put it out there so people would be able to see how involved they can be and how great they really are. Because this is something that I can't draw a good tree for the life of me. But these kids, they were very good at what they do. So after we did that and saw the we got really good comments from parents. We saw gleaming faces and teachers, the parents of the students, and most of all our students themselves. They began to believe in themselves. They began to actually communicate more. For those who were mildly verbal, they were more participative in class. And there was a real change that we felt. So this particular project involved mainly autistic individuals, just for information. So that felt like a little tiny success for us, but it was just a small hop forward. We knew that we needed to keep looking and keep going. So in the recent months, Pusat Bahagia, where I'm currently working, we started looking at policies that govern Pusat Bahagia. We looked at how our services needed a review and realigned to the vision of the National Plan of Action for PWDs. This required looking at issues with better eyes. And as mentioned by Yang Hormat Datu Menteri at the recent LegCo, we aim to begin work on the revitalization of Pusat Bahagia. We'll then introduce 4 new functions: early intervention program for Down syndrome, daycare center for cerebral palsy, center for the visually and hearing impaired, resource center, or sheltered workshop. So these are exciting times ahead of us. And there is a place for persons with disabilities too. They just need someone else to believe in them and to assist them to communicate their needs and their dreams. And this is something that I have personally learned through that little tiny project that we had. And I'm really hoping that whatever we do for these individuals, it has to be supported by all. Neighbors, parents, uncles, families, or probably even somebody on the street. It takes just a little bit of empathy to be able to help another person. And it doesn't just apply to persons with disabilities. So perhaps I'll end it there. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dan Kudewi. Okay, so there is one question from Salimatul Saleh, Pengiran Salimatul Saleh. She would like to say, thank you, panelists, for the fruitful and eye-opening session. I love what Puan Nur Haslinda mentioned about getting the child involved in meetings to discuss about their individualized education plan and etc. Now, how can we empower children with autism or disabilities in general to be brave to speak for themselves and share their opinions, thoughts, and in such settings? Now, this is what also Dayang Kudewi was just saying, empowering their own students to be able to do this. And as a mother, it's very hard to empower my son to want to do things as well. So I'll leave this to Ms. Nur Haslinda I think I'll leave it to Nur Haslinda and Ms. Ayla, because you both try your best to empower your own kids to be able to speak up for themselves. So the floor is yours.
Well, for me, one way to empower our children is that, because usually most of these kids, they come with challenges, and most of the challenges, present itself as very challenging behaviors. And more often than not, the first thing that comes to parents' minds is that shut up, be quiet, just sit there, don't do anything. So how can we empower kids to speak, what they want, what they need, if we are always telling them to just be quiet? And I believe that can happen in a school setting where a teacher has maybe 30 students, 30 to 40 students. And of course, it's very difficult, right? So you want that. But again, this kind of things actually starts from home. Yeah. And we should learn to, find out what's happening behind that behavior first. Okay. And then only then we can speak to the child. Okay. Or even if we don't understand, say something along the lines like, look, I understand you're going through a hard time. I don't understand what you're trying to say to me. Okay. But I'm here for you. Give them that confidence that, there's always somebody that believes in them. Right? I believe that they could even said that as well, right? To have somebody believe in them, to have somebody to just listen to them. So usually for my kids, that's what I do. But as they grow older, and they do go through difficult times where even the verbal ones would not become verbal, they would sort of climb up, they would just shut down, right? The shutdowns are really difficult. But before they get to that stage, usually like, I don't know what's going on, but I am there for you. So for them to know that there is somebody there for them, that already gives them that confidence, that boost. So, I'll let you be for now. Maybe in your own time, when you're feeling a bit better, you can always come talk to me about anything. And again, as a parent, judgment, ego out the door, because you are there just for them. At the same time, you play the role of a parent and a friend as well. Because as you know, most of these kids, they have very minimal friends out there. So you are their first friend, you're the buddy, you're the parent as well. Yeah. So that way we can actually empower our children to be able to speak their mind, and again, but as a parent, you also have that sort of power to give them proper guidelines on how to express themselves appropriately. Yeah. Instead of just lashing out. I hate to use the word, I had to say saying, use your words, okay? But I know that when when they're in the middle of a tantrum or meltdown, it's very difficult to use their words. So that's why I'm just telling them, I'm here for you. I'm here for you when you're ready, anytime. So that way we can empower our children to be confident, to be able to speak out, okay, on whatever issues that bothers them. There are happy moments, there are sad moments, or everything. So that's all I can say for this one at the moment.
Oh, I think this is very true to also my family. But
Yeah,
yes,
this
Kaila, continue.
this resonates very much. Yeah. One thing I learned very, very early on, even when I was reading the books, then watching my child grow, it was behavior is communication. If my child is crying on the floor, he's telling me something. I have to listen. So even without words, he's telling me something. But even before I had a child, actually, with Farid, what is he telling me? What is it that I need to know? What do I need to listen to? Behavior is communication. So if they are upset, why are they upset? What is underneath the behavior? And I think that's really important. It's really difficult at the beginning, but eventually we all get the hang of it. That because you have to want to learn, right? You have to want to improve. It then goes back to what I keep saying: your intention, right? If the intention is there to be good and to do good and to protect this child and to make this child the best that they and the most independent that they could possibly be, I'm here for you. My son used to just be so full of emotions that he could not speak and could not use his words. But I would just sit there with him and just be with him. No words, no judgment, nothing. Just let him know that I can see him for everything he is. And I'm still there. I still love him. And I'm here. And again, if you want to talk to me, you know you can anytime. And now that he's 14, teenagers, I don't know if you felt the same, Linda, when you were raising your boys. He suddenly stopped being my little chatty boy who wants to talk about Dragon Ball all the time or whatever game. Now all of a sudden he's just moody and like that. But then
Yeah.
someday,
Oh, yeah. My eldest calls it the teenage angst, being
yes,
angsty.
yes, and everything Babu does, everything that I do is cringy, and not cool, and don't say that, and shh, and okay. But then I'll be in my room, and then he'll come in, and he'll look, see if he's alone. I said, "Kenapa sayang? What's wrong?" And then he comes, and he'll sit on my lap. It's not here. Okay. He'll sit on my lap, and then he will ask me, and I will find out why he was so grumpy. The last one was, how do you know if people don't want to be your friends anymore? And as a mother, you don't want to hear that, but then you have to, and like you said, Linda, you have the power, right? To guide them to be good humans. So, validate. It's not a good, it's not a nice feeling. I felt it before. But you cannot force people to do things that they don't want to do. And there's this thing called consent, etc.
Mm.
So yeah,
So
that really resonated with me, what you shared. And yeah, it's one day at a time, and it's just my son. That's it,
Mm.
and my other children to
Yep.
understand their abang. Yeah. Okay.
All right. Thank you so much for that. It's very touching.
yeah.
Both of you.
Didi, if I may add, if you
Yep.
don't mind.
Sure.
Yeah, sorry, just a quick one. I'm sure that question, somebody might be thinking, what if the child is nonverbal? How are they going to be advocating for themselves? Yeah, that's where what Norali mentioned about assistive technology.
Yes.
Because I remember my second one, he was nonverbal. So we really racked our heads in how can we communicate with him, because he was so frustrated, meltdowns all the time, and we wanted to teach him potty training that time. So because I have a family member who is also with a disability, so we learned sign language when we were young. So then I decided, let me try sign language with my son, see whether this will work with an autistic child. So alhamdulillah, it worked. Okay, so as he grew older, again, he was still nonverbal. So again, assistive technology, with once the tablet was available, smartphones, he started showing pictures. So that way we knew what was going on in his mind. Like, why was he angry? Because he could obviously understand what we were saying, like, why are you angry? Why are you kicking everything? Why are you hitting your head? Then he goes around, on the tablet looking for a picture, and he was showing that he wants to go out to probably Huahomangis. That's specific, it's not just to any Huaho.
It had to be Wahomangis, yes.
Go to Huahomangis. Oh, you want to go out? And then he stopped. So again, in order to empower children, we need to give them the tools to be able to communicate. That's where assistive technology is amazing now. It's there, use it. I always tell parents, nothing harmful, use it wisely. The key is use it wisely, and for young children, always supervise them. There's nothing wrong, the technology is there, so make full use of it.
Yep.
So yeah, so I hope this answers the question for how can we empower children. Is basic communication, giving them the tools to be able to communicate with us, and also encouraging them to be able to communicate with us.
Yep. Thank you
Thank
so
you. That's
much. I think just to sum it up as well is that because this is also resonates very well with Smarter Brunei. Recently, ever since the pandemic had hit, we have converted our program to be online fully, and we've created social stories, and we've created a lot of programs to help continue on our program for our students from at home. One of the things that we have noticed is that we have a great many students who are very able to vocalize and verbalize what they feel. And that's why we have this video this year for World Autism Awareness Day, where we ask them, why is WAD important to them? Because we wanted their voices to be heard. And most of those answers were not scripted, they were from them. We asked our students who were able to and capable to Google the answer, or ask them, why don't you take a look at what means? So we've given them these tools, and they've become so confident to express themselves now. And it's because it starts, what like Nur Haslinda said and Malay Ayla said, is that the support system, you need to be the safe space for them. Once they are so feeling safe and supported, that confidence will just beam through very, very brightly. And that's something that this is why the topic is here today, empowering inclusion, because if they feel included, if they feel empowered, they will speak up. And so to sum up this whole forum, that I hope to present this report to this week to our to our guests of honor, Yang Berhormat Datu, to also the Ministry of Health and the Ministry of Education. There were so many good points, so I'm just going to quite quickly go through them. One thing about empowering inclusion in the endemic phase is that we need resources, and we have to, but on top of resources, it requires a lot of resources. We also need to work with what we have. You cannot rely solely on the government. So working on what we have. So if we, right now we have great number of NGOs that are active, but we have also a great government that's trying to support these NGOs. So that's one thing that we can work with what we have, that resource there. Second of all is the attitude. And this is the 5 A's that Norali mentioned: the attitude, the acceptance, access, advocacy, and assistive technology. And I really resonate with assistive technology right now, because if it wasn't for assistive technology, that's why Smarter Brunei has an online program. I talked to my staff and I told them, we have the means, we need to make it happen. So let's make it happen. And so I think what we need to now do is that with all these 5 A's and all these great points, is to create that strategic alliance that Norali had mentioned, and also possibly bring up a diversity and inclusion statement involved in all these relevant agencies. And I really hope that in this report it would be heard and it would be seen, and inshallah something very much as Yang Muhammad Datu speech said, truly can be implemented and is sustainable to be implemented in Brunei Darussalam. And once again, I would really like to thank all our panelists today for your wonderful, wonderful contribution. It was such an eye-opening conversation. Thank you so much, everyone. I hope that you also enjoyed the panel, this forum. I hope you also learned a lot. And thank you as well to all our participants. Thank you, Yang Berhormat Datu. That's all from me, your moderator. I am now going to pass the floor off to our MC. I'll see you all, inshallah, soon at the next forum, may it be physically or virtually. Thank you, everyone. Thank you to our panelists.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you to our amazing moderator and guest speakers. Before we end this event, let's invite one Muhammad Hanif bin Haji Ibrahim to lead the prayer.
استغفر الله العظيم استغفر الله العظيم استغفر الله العظيم الذي لا إله إلا هو الحي القيوم وأتوب إليه. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والعصر إن الإنسان لفي خسر إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر.
Amin, Amin, Ya Rabbal Alamin. That's all for today's forum. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Hope to see you again in the near future.
Assalamualaikum. Terima kasih ha. Alhamdulillah.
Thank you, Yang Berhormat Dato'.
Assalamualaikum Pengarana. Alhamdulillah. Can't wait to hear the report, to see the report. Inshallah. We'll look into it.
Thank you so much, Yang Berhormat Datu. Assalamualaikum. Salam Ramadan.
Sama juga. Selamat bulan Ramadan. Thank you so much, everybody.
Thank you so much. Waalaikumsalam.
Thank you, Didi.
Thank you,
Yes.
Pangeran. Thank you,
Yes,
Tuan.
thank you. Yes,
Thank you, Your Excellencies, all the ambassadors who joined us
Yes.
today. Alhamdulillah. Thank you. I hope you enjoyed and learned much from this event.
You're welcome. Thank you,
Yes.
Smarter Brunei. Thank you for making this good opportunity to learn a lot of things. Thank you so much. So I appreciate the parents join this meeting.
Thank you so
Yeah.
much, Your
Assalamualaikum.
Excellency. Walaikum salam. Have a happy Ramadan.
Yes. Please drop by Bijak Cafe after Ramadan. For this, yeah. Thank you. Ramadan Barak. Happy Autism Awareness Day.
Baik je sampai-sampai after Ramadan ah.
Yeah.
After Ramadan, please.
Okay, nada
Thank
suka
you.
eat all you can, nada.
Because our students have voiced out that they don't want to work at night, okay? We listen to them, we respect them. As the forum said, accessibility and consent from our kids, okay?
Thank you, Yang Berhormat.
Thank you, Yang Berhormat.
Okay, bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. Yeah, bye.